Welcome to NTD News. I'm Evelyn Lee, and here are today's top stories. Republicans block Democrats' election reform bill via the filibuster. Why are Republicans against the bill, and what does an election reform expert have to say about it? In Texas, more illegal immigrants are choosing to take a dangerous ride stowed away on freight trains heading north. Border Patrol agents are finding more of them locked up inside baking hot cargo containers. A Senate committee is re-examining sentencing laws for cocaine. This comes as the Biden administration pushes to eliminate disparities between crack and powder cocaine. Senate Republicans are expected to shoot down a proposal to make the District of Columbia the 51st U.S. state using the filibuster. Democrats are eager to add the district's potential congressional delegates, which would most likely go to their party. A new report says some of the killers of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi were trained in the U.S. under a contract provided by the State Department. Senate Republicans blocked Democrats' election reform bill yesterday, saying it infringes on states' rights to run elections. But Democrats aren't giving up. They say this is just the beginning. Here's NTD's Jessica Beatty.
Senate Republicans blocked Democrats' election reform bill Tuesday evening.
Not agreed to.
The 50-50 party line vote fell short of the 60 votes needed to advance the bill. Republicans argued the For the People Act infringes on state rights.
What this is really about is an effort for the federal government to take over the way we conduct elections in this country.
The Constitution gives state legislatures the primary power over running elections. The Senate Republican leader tweeting, "There's no rational basis for a federal takeover of all 50 states' elections."
The American people can be relieved that the federal government, at least in this area, is not going to expand and supplant the states which have been involved in conducting elections throughout the history of our country.
Democrats were united in favor of the vote after getting support from Senator Joe Manchin of West Virginia. They pushed the bill as a way to counter efforts by Republican states to restrict voting access.
That when we're talking about the right to vote, it is not a Republican concern or a Democratic concern. It is an American concern. This is about the American people's right to vote, unfettered.
But some argue the Democrats' proposal makes elections less secure, not more. Hans von Spakovsky heads the Heritage Foundation Election Law Reform Initiative. He said,
"It would change election rules to make it easier to cheat and easier to manipulate election results. And on the ethics and campaign finance rule changes, it's designed to restrict and chill speech."
Democrat lawmakers and the White House have said they'll press on with voting reform.
In the fight for voting rights, this vote was the starting gun, not the finish line.
The vote, which failed because of the filibuster, is sparking new calls by some Democrats to rethink that rule. The 60-vote procedure could be the next battle. Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
A county in Michigan voted to authorize a hand recount of the 2020 election. It's the latest in a series of Republican-led efforts to verify the results of the 2020 election. The county's Board of Commissioners voted to authorize the audit. Michigan Secretary of State would have to approve it. The requested audit would investigate if the Dominion voting machines were connected to the internet and if votes were manipulated in any way. Michigan's Democratic State Secretary Jocelyn Benson is unlikely to grant the audit. She's been highly critical of an audit in Maricopa County, Arizona. According to the Detroit News, Representative Steve Carra introduced a bill to authorize a partial statewide audit in Michigan. Republican state representatives in Pennsylvania are also pushing for an audit. Former President Trump recently said he hasn't conceded the election and that more evidence of fraud will come out soon. And the Senate Judiciary Committee held a hearing to examine sentencing guidelines for crack and powder cocaine. The two types of cocaine have been treated differently since the 80s, but whether that distinction will remain is yet to be seen. NTD's Christina Kim has that story.
Drug sentencing laws are complex. They must be fair and they must be just.
The Senate Judiciary is considering the Equal Act, which would eliminate the sentencing disparity between crack and powder cocaine. The committee held a hearing on Tuesday to re-examine federal sentencing on this issue. The disparity comes after a 1986 law established much harsher penalties for crack cocaine than powder cocaine. And the Biden administration is pushing to end the sentencing disparity because they say it has disproportionately harmed communities of color.
Senators.
The Senate Judiciary Committee chairman said it's up to lawmakers to make changes.
So it is no reflection on law enforcement. It's our reflection on us and what we have done in establishing these standards of sentencing. And I think that's why we have such an awesome responsibility. I've personally witnessed
Local Texas leader Antonio Garcia has personally witnessed the devastation drugs have caused his community while working in law enforcement for 45 years. He said the sentencing guidelines are the consequences used to hold traffickers accountable for their actions.
These guidelines are established to act as deterrents to the would-be criminals, and if these are removed, we send the wrong, or at best, a very mixed message.
Garcia notes these criminal organizations, drug cartels, and smugglers are predators who will target the most vulnerable, and that U.S. officials must work together to prevent drug abuse. Christina Kim, NTD News.
A House bill that would make Washington, D.C. a state is expected to succumb to the filibuster in the Senate. Republicans are successfully blocking major parts of the Biden administration's agenda in Congress using the Senate rule.
The U.S. Senate is expected to hold off a House bill that would make the District of Columbia the 51st U.S. state. The bill is not likely to have enough votes to overcome the filibuster. The House voted to make the Capital District a new state along party lines, with Democrats supporting it. If the district became a state, Democrats would likely pick up 2 new senators and the state's congressional delegate. Washington, D.C. votes reliably for Democrats. Proponents of the bill say that residents of D.C. are denied fair representation, even though they pay federal taxes.
And prayerfully, I will be the last D.C. mayor who needs to sit here demanding on behalf of our 700,000 residents what is our birthright and what is owed to us as taxpayers.
Currently, district residents get presidential delegates, but they don't have voting representation in either chamber of Congress. Republicans argued that the Constitution created the district's special status, and Congress does not have the authority to change it.
What Congress cannot do is override the Constitution anytime it becomes inconvenient for a majority in Congress. A temporary majority, as James Madison would have said. D.C.
Mayor Muriel Bowser says that's an aberration of the Constitution.
The second-class status of D.C. residents is clearly an anomaly of the United States Constitution, not a feature of it.
Senator Josh Hawley says the people can change the Constitution if they want through a democratic process.
The Justice Department is cracking down on illegal gun trafficking. On Tuesday, the DOJ announced it's creating new strike forces focused on the crime. They'll target 5 areas of the country: New York, Chicago, Los Angeles, the San Francisco Bay Area, and Washington, D.C. The new teams will track where the trafficked weapons come from and where they're used in violent crimes. The strike forces will work across districts and states for the next 30 days to take down trafficking networks. The move comes as the U.S. sees even more gun violence. Just this weekend, 10 mass shootings happened across the nation, killing at least 7 people. High school students in Florida will soon be required to learn about the dangers of communism. That's under one of 3 bills Governor Ron DeSantis just signed. 2 of the bills focus on civics education, and the 3rd requires freedom of expression at state colleges and universities. One requires the state's education department to develop a K-12 civics curriculum that includes teaching students about the Constitution and Bill of Rights. It also requires high schools to look at harmful political ideologies and examine how they're different to the founding principles of the U.S. DeSantis stated that schools must provide instruction of the evils of communism and totalitarian ideology. He noted that there are Florida residents who have escaped totalitarianism regimes and communist dictatorships to live in America. And growing numbers of illegal immigrants come across the southern border. Many of them are choosing a grueling and hazardous form of travel north into U.S. cities.
Large number of illegal immigrants in Texas take a dangerous ride north, locked up inside cargo trains. Empty grain hoppers are a preferred method for stowing away. They can be baking hot, and immigrants are generally stuck inside until someone on the outside cranks open the bottom plate. Border Patrol agents discovered 21 illegal immigrants in one grain hopper Monday. Freight trains run day and night from Mexico into the cities of El Paso, Laredo, and Brownsville, Texas. Seeing a stream of immigrants scatter off the trains and into surrounding streets and fields as they slow down is a common sight. Earlier this month, a woman fell under a train and sustained serious injuries while trying to escape from agents. Agents give chase and capture the ones they can. Customs and Border Protection say they caught over 180,000 illegal immigrants in May. At least 51,000 more were seen but escaped in the same month. Most of the captured immigrants are returned to Mexico. Many of them will try to come in again. In May, 38% of people caught by Border Patrol had been captured at least one other time in the last year. That's more than double the average from the last 5 years. Governors from Texas and Arizona have called on other states to help with the crisis. So far, Florida, Kentucky, Nebraska, Idaho, Georgia, South Carolina, and Oklahoma say they are sending law enforcement or National Guard troops to help.
President Biden says he will host a meeting with governors from western states, cabinet members, and federal emergency management officials. This is to help prepare for heat, drought, and wildfires. Hurricane season is underway and a heat wave is afflicting the West. And Biden told reporters that he wants to make sure the United States is in a position to help Americans deal with severe weather. Biden made the announcement at a meeting with the administrator of the Emergency Management Agency, the Homeland Security Advisor, and other officials. He also vowed to increase wages for federal firefighters and said the current pay of $13 an hour was ridiculous. Biden said it was critical for the U.S. to be prepared and have every resource available to address flooding, wildfires, and other extreme weather events. The U.S. Secret Service says nearly 900 employees tested positive for COVID-19 between March 1st of last year and March 9th of this year. The news came in a statement from the agency Tuesday. It comes after a report by Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics Washington that analyzed internal records obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request. Those records detailed the number of infections among agents and other employees. The Secret Service said the health and safety of its workers is a top priority. The agency also pointed out that it distributed personal protective equipment to employees worldwide during the pandemic. Dr. Fauci's organization oversaw funds given to the University of Pittsburgh, but some argue that that may have granted experiments using lab rats and tissue from aborted fetuses. We take a look at some of the potential connections.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the NIAID, recently came under fire for granting federal funds for research that reportedly involves aborted fetuses. According to Town Hall, Fauci's office gave the University of Pittsburgh $61 million of the $109 million they received from the NIH for research. The research included attaching the scalps of aborted fetuses onto the backs of lab rats and mice. It was to study the human immune response to skin infections. The resulting study was published in September of last year. David Daleiden, pro-life activist and founder of the Center for Medical Progress, published an opinion piece in Newsweek detailing the potential conflict of interest between the University of Pittsburgh and Planned Parenthood Western Pennsylvania, or PPWP. That's because federal law requires that fetal researchers must be separated from the abortion process. If these allegations are true, that relationship would be against the law. He testified at Pennsylvania's House Health Committee's hearing on fetal experimentation earlier in May. In particular, the medical director at PPWP also runs the abortion training program at Pitt and is a vice chair on the Human Research Protection Office, which oversees research applications. In undercover videos taken by Daleiden, Planned Parenthood staff appear to reveal that they supply the university's tissue bank from the abortions they perform. The university has denied the accusations. They say there is no procurement relationship for tissue with Planned Parenthood. In an emailed statement to NTD, a university spokesman said the institution fully complies with federal and state regulations on fetal tissue research, and they say Daleiden's claims are not based in reality. They did not comment on their potential relationship with Planned Parenthood. Daleiden points out that most of this information is available from public sources. He urges the public and officials to take action against what he says is the human trafficking and the experimental use of aborted infants. This comes as the Biden administration recently reversed the Trump-era restrictions on fetal tissue research. And in May, the Senate narrowly rejected an amendment that would criminalize research that created chimeras, or human-animal hybrids. It proposed to bar the transfer of a human embryo to a non-human womb and vice versa. It was intended as a check on the NIH, which was planning to lift its moratorium on research using chimeras. The vote is part of a growing debate about the use of fetal tissue in scientific research.
4 Saudis who were involved in the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi were allegedly trained in the U.S. The New York Times reported Tuesday that they received paramilitary training under a contract that the State Department provided.
The U.S. State Department under former President Donald Trump approved paramilitary training for several of the Saudi operatives who killed Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. That's according to a New York Times report on Tuesday. It says the State Department in 2017 issued a paramilitary training contract to the private equity firm Shareholders. Last year, while being vetted by the Trump White House for a senior Pentagon job, Shareholders senior executive Louis Bramer confirmed in writing that his company trained 4 members of the Khashoggi kill team. The Times reported Bramer's admission never made it to Congress because his nomination was withdrawn. On Tuesday, State Department spokesperson Ned Price said he could not comment on the defense license in question. Khashoggi was an opinion columnist for the Washington Post. He was killed and dismembered by Saudi operatives linked to the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. A U.S. intelligence report earlier this year said the Crown Prince had approved an operation to capture or kill the journalist.
Coming up, the U.S. opened a fund to compensate the relatives of those killed in 2 Boeing 737 MAX plane crashes. Each eligible family member will receive around $1.5 million. Andrew Yang drops out of New York City's mayoral race after early voting results show him in 4th place in the Democratic primary. Eric Adams is currently leading. That and more on NTD News. The U.S. opened a $500 million fund to compensate the relatives of 2 Boeing 737 MAX crashes. The 2 crashes killed 346 people.
The U.S. has opened a $500 million fund to compensate the relatives of 346 people killed in 2 fatal Boeing 737 MAX crashes in Ethiopia and Indonesia. That's according to claim administrators who spoke to Reuters. The fund, which opened on Monday as part of a settlement with the US Justice Department. Boeing agreed in January to pay $500 million to compensate heirs, relatives and beneficiaries of the passengers who died in the Lion Air and Ethiopian Airlines flights. The administrators said in a joint statement that each eligible family member will receive nearly $1.45 million. The money will be paid on a rolling basis as claim forms are submitted and completed. It's all part of a $2.5 billion Justice Department settlement with Boeing, which was charged with fraud over how the MAX was certified as fit for service. The jet was grounded for 20 months after the 2 crashes. The FAA lifted the order after Boeing made software upgrades and training changes. The Justice Department and Boeing declined to comment on the Reuters report.
A group of Coca-Cola shareholders are threatening legal action over the company's diversity policy. They say the policy might actually be illegal and would require contracted law firms to violate anti-discrimination laws. NTD's Grace Coulter has the story.
Back in January, Coca-Cola required its outside law firms to use diverse attorneys for its legal work or risk losing pay and business. The soda company demanded that at least 30% of paid legal work be done by people of color, LGBTQ people, women, and people with disabilities. Half of that quota must be black attorneys. But a group of concerned Coca-Cola shareholders are saying that these policies actually violate anti-discrimination laws and thus expose the company to liability, meaning the company could get sued.
There are any number of individuals discriminated against who could challenge such a thing. Any or all of those entities could bring suit against Coca-Cola, arguing that Coke had most clearly violated a provision of the Civil Rights Act of 1866. That was actually the very first civil rights statute passed by Congress. That's what they're violating, the very first civil rights statute.
Dan Mornoff is the executive director of the American Civil Rights Project. The public interest firm sent a letter to Coca-Cola earlier this month on behalf of the shareholders. One of their demands is that the company must publicly retract and scrap the policy. Mornov says if Coke doesn't comply, they will have to take legal action.
I do certainly hope that Coca-Cola's officers and directors do what they should and bring the company back into compliance with American law, as well as with the consensus of a supermajority of Americans about what is right, and stops discriminating on the basis of race, ethnicity, sex, gender, and disability status. I hope that they do that. I hope that we don't have to bring courts into this in order to force them to do what they must know they should do. And if they don't, well, then we'll make them.
A spokesperson for Coca-Cola said the diversity policy is being reviewed following the April resignation of Coke's top lawyer who came up with it. It's unclear if the policy is still being enforced upon law firms. Coca-Cola told NTD in an email that the company has nothing additional to share about the policy. Several major corporations across the country are adopting similar policies to Coke's and are implementing different forms of diversity quotas. Mornov says this letter to Coca-Cola also serves as a warning to other corporations. He says if this matter ends up in court, the ruling could not only impact Coke, but also the other companies embracing these policies. Grace Coulter, NTD News.
Andrew Yang is officially dropping out of the New York City mayoral race. His announcement comes after early election results show him in 4th place. Yang was among 13 Democrats seeking the party's nomination. Eric Adams appears to be the early frontrunner for Democrats, with about 32% of the votes after polls closed. He's followed by civil rights attorney Maya Wiley in 2nd place and former Sanitation Commissioner Catherine Garcia in 3rd place. Guardian Angels founder Curtis Sliwa won the Republican nomination. More than 200,000 absentee ballots still need to be counted, and the winner of the primary will likely take time to figure out. This is the first time the city held a ranked choice voting election where voters rank multiple candidates on the ballot. And after the death of George Floyd last year, many began protesting in cities across the U.S., with some protests escalating into looting or worse. NTD's Ariane Pastar has an update on the charges made against rioters in New York City.
Slowly but surely, 34th Street is getting busy again. People are walking on the street and shopping at stores. But a year ago, Macy's flagship store was just one of many completely boarded up for protection against vandalism and looting. Now it's time to prosecute those charges, but many have been dropped. More than 450 people have been arrested in Manhattan in connection to looting and riots from last year. But Manhattan's district attorney tells NBC they had to drop over 200 of those charges because of the backlog of cases caused by the pandemic. Attorney and former NYPD captain Robert Brown says looting should still be prosecuted.
These are generally felony cases. These are serious burglary cases that to drop. If you're going to, drop anything, drop your misdemeanors or your summonses.
Law professor Nora Demleitner says it's hard to prove that the suspects really committed the crimes and says the suspects have already been punished.
Now, some of these didn't get jail time, but they got a fine, they got a criminal record. That's a substantial sanction for someone. We underestimate how substantial that is.
She added special circumstances like the virus played a big role in this decision.
This is not a binding decision on a future prosecutor, or if rioting started in New York tomorrow, the reaction would probably be quite different.
But according to Brown, this doesn't send the right message.
Go out and loot, knock yourself out, there's no ramifications to it. To the public, it gives you a sense of not being safe.
In total, almost 130 cases still remain open in Manhattan. Ariane Pastar, NTD News, New York.
Up next, fast food is getting more expensive. Restaurants like McDonald's and Wendy's are raising prices and reducing value menu items to counter rising food costs. Find out more on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, inventor of MyPillow. Thanks to your support, you've helped make MyPillow become one of the fastest growing companies in America. I'm interrupting this commercial right now. Retailers have canceled MyPillow, and to thank you for your support, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. For example, you get my 6-piece towel sets, regular $109.99, now only $44.98, or MyPillow dog beds for as low as $19.99 with your promo code.
We're becoming more and more urban. We lose our connection with nature. This little girl lives in a world of natural beauty, nature all around her. Not everybody has this opportunity. Things are growing all around her, all sort of handmade things. The artist has portrayed a scene that is so comforting and so grounded that we can experience this ourselves. The artist himself has to be absolutely natural. And it's not easy to do because children are hard to paint. Birds are hard to paint. They don't sit still. This is quite an accomplishment, reflecting nature back to us. It's just a pure, natural painting.
Scientists believe they may have found a way to study the interior of Venus without landing on its surface. NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory and Research Institute Caltech have developed a balloon that's able to detect earthquakes on Earth. Barometers which measure changes in air pressure are attached to the high-altitude balloons. Using the technology, scientists were able to detect aftershocks of an earthquake in California in 2019. Scientists are now hoping this technique can be used to reveal the mysteries of Venus. Nothing is able to land on the planet because its temperatures and air pressure are so high. Some of America's largest fast food chains like McDonald's or KFC are getting rid of $5 and under value items. Instead, customers will get more expensive combination meals. That's partially because they're trying to offset rising food costs.
Squeezed by higher food costs, America's fast food chains are shifting their focus to the higher end of the menu. Instead of prominently featuring the $5 and under value meals, sandwich, fries, and drink that became an industry standard in recent years, chains like McDonald's are upscaling their combo items and upscaling the price. The world's largest fast food chain is now aggressively promoting its $10 Chicken McNugget BTS meal, named for the popular South Korean boy band that endorses it, and scaling back its $1, $2, $3 menu to just 8 items instead of 12. And Mickey D's is not alone. Data show fast food chains launched fewer new combination meals over the last 18 months, according to Data Central, a Chicago research firm that counts the deals that U.S. national restaurant chains promote on their websites and social media. And when there are new deals, the price tags are higher. That's something avid fast food eater Randy Slaughter of Tucson, Arizona has noticed. He uses apps on his mobile phone to help him pick where to eat based on which of his favorite spots still have the best value meals.
I will look elsewhere if, for example, when they're taking it away, someone else adds it. I'll kind of pivot for a little while.
It's not just higher food costs that's driving fast food chains to offer higher priced combo meals. Demand soared throughout the health crisis with few alternative eating options out there. And not only that, the current popularity of chicken sandwiches means fast food chains don't have to discount as much. Wendy's, which popularized its 99-cent Biggie menu in 1989, is now seeing success with a new $7 spicy pretzel bacon pub, a fried chicken fillet on a pretzel bun topped with pickles, fried onions, bacon, 2 kinds of sauce, and Munster cheese. And it's not just chicken. Demand is also so strong for pizza that Domino's said it has suspended a half-price pizza promotion for online orders. But some industry watchers worry higher prices could alienate a key portion of fast food's customer base. Hourly workers and other lower-income customers who have grown accustomed to getting a quick meal for just a few dollars. Don't worry, says BTIG analyst Peter Saleh.
Once things are more normal, I think you'll see value come back onto the menu. That may not be until December or January.
But not all of the deals are gone. There are just fewer of them.
Walt Disney World in Florida turns 50 this year, and the most magical place of Earth is ready to celebrate. The park announced some of the details of its 18-month celebration, which begins October 1st. Among them, Disney Enchantment. It's a nighttime event in the Magic Kingdom featuring music, light shows, fireworks, and immersive projection effects. Epcot will have a multilingual musical showcase of classic Disney songs called Harmonious. Over at the Animal Kingdom, visitors at the Discovery River Amphitheater can see a kite show. The extended celebration will also feature the grand opening of Remy's Ratatouille adventure at Epcot. More events will be announced later. Still to come, the first person charged under Hong Kong's restrictive national security law pleads not guilty. He is accused of terrorism and inciting secession. And Hong Kong's Apple Daily newspaper decides to end operations. That's after authorities froze the company's assets. The paper says it's stopping because of the city's political situation. That and more on NTD News. The first person charged under the national security law in Hong Kong pleaded guilty as his trial began on Wednesday, almost a year after he was accused of driving his motorbike into officers at a rally while carrying a flag with protest slogan.
The first person charged under the national security law in Hong Kong pleaded not guilty at the start of his trial on Wednesday. 24-year-old Tong Ying Kit was arrested hours after the national security law was enacted in Hong Kong on July 1st last year. He's accused of terrorism and inciting secession after he drove his motorbike into officers at a rally while carrying a flag with a protest slogan. If found guilty, he faces up to life in prison. He is also charged with dangerous driving causing grievous bodily harm, which can lead to up to 7 years in prison. Tong was denied bail and denied a trial by jury. Hong Kong's judiciary describes trial by jury as one of the most important features of the city's legal system. Article 46 of the security law drafted by Beijing states 3 instances in which juries can be scrapped: protecting state secrets, cases involving foreign forces, and protecting jurors' safety. The Court of Appeal upheld the decision and said the reason he was denied a jury was a perceived threat to the personal safety of jurors and their family members. His case is seen as a test of the government's claim that the slogan, "Liberate Hong Kong, Revolution of Our Times," is secessionist. Meanwhile, also on Wednesday, police arrested a columnist for pro-democracy tabloid Apple Daily. The 55-year-old man, whose name was not disclosed by police, was arrested on suspicion of conspiring to collude with a foreign country or foreign forces.
And Apple Daily is one of the few independent media outlets in Hong Kong. But it will halt operations by midnight tonight. That's right after police froze its assets and arrested its executives.
Popular Hong Kong paper Apple Daily will be printed for the last time on Thursday, calling time on a 26-year run for the pro-democracy tabloid. The decision comes after a tough year, in which the offices were raided by police and its tycoon owner and other staff were arrested under a new national security law. The paper mixes pro-democracy discourse with racy celebrity gossip and investigations of those in power. Its closure has escalated alarm over media freedom and other rights in the Chinese-ruled city. Apple Daily said the decision was based on employee safety and manpower considerations. The paper's publisher, Next Digital, said in a statement the decision to close the newspaper, which employs about 600 journalists, was taken due to the current circumstances prevailing in Hong Kong. Police last week froze assets of companies linked to the newspaper and arrested 5 executives. Authorities have said dozens of Apple daily pieces may have violated the security law, which Beijing imposed on the city last year. Rights groups, media organisations and Western governments have criticised last week's police raid on the newspaper.
China has the second highest population of millionaires in the world, but many of them seem to have their sights set on other countries. A new report explains why they want to leave. Here's NTD's Tiffany Meyer with more.
China's wealthy are seeking greener pastures abroad. That's according to a recent Afrasia Bank report. Data shows that the country is among the world's top 10 for the largest outflow of millionaires, and now it ranks number 1. The report lists nations with the largest 2019 emigration rates for high net worth individuals, or HNWI. The study covers HNWI with net worth ranging from $1 million to $9.9 million, and who have settled in a new country for at least 6 months. 16,000 millionaires left China in 2019. That's more than twice India's reported rate, which comes in at number 2 on the list. Hong Kong ranks number 4 after Russia. More than 4,000 Hong Kongers chose to leave the politically charged city. Given the city's population of just 7.5 million, the shift reflects an extremely high emigration rate. Reasons for leaving include financial concerns, work opportunities, and opposition toward regional politics. As for the countries receiving these millionaire immigrants, Australia tops the list. The nation accepted 12,000 new HNWI in 2019. The United States trailed behind slightly with nearly 11,000 HNWI. International media report that many rich Chinese citizens are running away from the country's polluted cities and the Chinese Communist Party's suppression. The trend reflects a 2014 report from Hong Kong-based South China Morning Post, saying a Barclays Wealth report found that around half of China's rich intended to move to another country within 5 years. China plans to keep its border restrictions for another year as virus fears persist within the country. This despite having administered 1 billion vaccine doses. The Wall Street Journal says this is because Beijing wants to be extra careful to ensure next year's Olympics go smoothly. China currently has great limits on the kind of travelers that are allowed in. Foreign nationals can only enter if they have a Chinese residence permit or if they have a certain visa. There are currently also travel restrictions between Hong Kong, Macau, and mainland China. The Wall Street Journal says when China eases travel restrictions, it will be for countries with high vaccination and low infection rates.
Australia is angry with the UN over proposals for its famous Great Barrier Reef. UNESCO says it wants to list the reef as in danger under the name of climate change. NTD's Ellison Lee has the details.
UNESCO's World Heritage Committee made the proposal on Tuesday, claiming that Australia hasn't done enough to protect the site. The Australian government says it will challenge the designation.
I will stand up in any community, and I do, and say that we have the best managed reef in the world, the gold standard, and no one has contradicted me yet. So this decision was flawed. Clearly there were politics behind it. Clearly those politics have subverted a proper process.
The Great Barrier Reef is a major tourist attraction off Australia's northeast coast. It's also the world's biggest coral reef system. Being on the in danger list may lead to the site being removed as a World Heritage Site.
We made very clear our strong disappointment, even our bewilderment, that our officials have been blindsided in the way that they have. Only a week ago, we were reassured that this was not going to occur.
China currently chairs the World Heritage Committee. An anonymous Australian official tells Reuters that China is behind the move, but the Chinese Foreign Ministry denies it.
When procedures are not followed, when, as I said, the process is turned on its head 5 minutes before the draft decision is due to be published, when the assurances that my officials received, and indeed I did, have all been upended at the last minute, what else can you conclude but that it is politics?
The Australian Environment Minister says it's appalling that the World Heritage Committee did not even foreshadow this listing. The committee will formally decide on the designation at a meeting in China next month. Allison Lee, NTD News.
Still to come, a high-tech pair of sunglasses is hitting the market, featuring both reading mode and scenic mode. The specs can refocus at the touch of a button, designed to mimic natural human vision. And a driving school in Dubai offers a luxury car fleet for students. The unique program is helping student drivers get their licenses faster and in style. That and more here on NTD News.
If you're like most of us, you're probably getting fed up with the nonsense that's going on in the banking system. Did you know that top U.S. banks have recently amended their depositor terms and conditions to include the words bank failure and what's required of you in 24 hours if, or should I say when, it happens? Don't get blindsided by your bank. Call GSI Exchange today to pick up your complimentary copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide at 866-424-2382. We'll also send you the required format to file with your bank within 24 hours of their failure, which is now required by the top banks to avoid freezing of your funds. Yes, the top banks can now freeze your money. The world is in a strange place, and banks are constantly changing the rules. So stay on top of the current events that really matter by calling GSI Exchange and requesting your free guide at 866-424-2382.
90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. They're not out to tell you the truth of what's happening. They're out to tell you the picture of the world that they represent. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in facts, and prevent people from being misled. This is a battle between truth and deceit. Subscribe today and join the Americans who are seeking truth and tradition. We'd love to have you on board.
An Israeli startup debuts its first ever adaptive focus glasses on Tuesday. With a simple swipe, the stylish digital sunglasses seamlessly switch to reading glasses. Here are the details.
Introducing 32 North.
This pair of glasses gives the word multi-purpose new meaning. Functioning as sunglasses one minute, they dynamically shift into prescription reading glasses the next. On Tuesday, Tel Aviv-based company Deepoptics unveiled its first ever adaptive focus sunglasses.
So this is 32 North. This is actually the first adaptive focus sunglasses. Sunglasses that can adapt to both reading and scenic modes. Basically, you can wear them like I do now, and simply by swiping, you can change the focus of the glasses from far distance to reading, just by swiping.
32 North sunglasses feature liquid crystal layers that are split into millions of tiny turnable pixels on the panel. The smart eyewear mimics natural human vision. When the user swipes, they activate an embedded processor, sending the user's prescription to each pixel, forming the correct lens. The liquid layer is also connected to the battery in the control circuit. This allows for more operations accessible via smart device.
We also added an app. You can download an app with these glasses for your Android or iOS system, and then this app will automatically tune the glasses to fit your prescription, to fit your IPD.
The company says the system can last all day on a single charge due to its low power consumption. 32 North is now on sale for early buyers, priced at $229.
After 15 years of closure, a major department store in Paris will reopen on June 23rd. But it will take time to get Parisians and tourists back.
150-year-old La Samaritaine is ready to welcome Parisians and tourists again. The department store opened on Monday after a 7-year makeover. French President Emmanuel Macron and France's richest man, LVMH chief Bernard Arnault, unveiled the revamped building.
I think this opening of La Samaritaine by DFS is an incredible message to the world that, COVID is going to be behind us.
La Samaritaine is famed for its 1920s era building and gilded Art Deco facade, but the revamped store will include a 3-foot airport-style moving walkway through a tunnel to nearby parking. Facing competition from online retailers, department stores had wanted to reinvent themselves as day trip destinations even before the pandemic hit. The crisis has forced several prestigious U.S. names to file for bankruptcy. As for most businesses that were forced to close in France, it'll take time to recover their losses.
If you read at the projections for airline international travel, I think that it's between the end of this year to maybe the first or second quarter of next year that we'll see a good return to normalcy.
La Samaritaine expects around 5 million visitors a year when things go back to normal.
A driving school in the United Arab Emirates is featuring high-end vehicles as part of its student courses. The program is also designed to speed up the process of getting a license. NTD's Andrew Thomas has a story.
Range Rovers and Bentleys are part of this Dubai driving school's unique strategy to help residents learn how to drive high-performance cars. Outside, Jaya Krishna opts for one of Elon Musk's rides.
This is my first day at EDI, and I'm happy I'm driving Tesla today with my instructor, and they've been wonderful from the beginning, and I've had a pleasure driving this car along with the instructor. The whole feeling is nice and wonderful.
Luxury cars are a common sight on Dubai's streets, so Emirates Driving Institute introduced high-end cars to their fleet. That way, students learn to drive vehicles similar to what they might buy.
The idea behind it was that we want customers to be better adapted to the safety features of the car that they are planning to buy after they get the driving license. Because earlier on, what used to happen, they used to get training in a Sunny or a Yaris, and then they go and buy this high-performance car. And it took them some time to get adapted to it, and sometimes they even had accidents.
The Platinum service offers students more comfort and enables them to get their driver licenses in less time.
I chose the Platinum service because it's one of the best in this class, and it makes the whole experience better. And one of my relatives also just had passed through Platinum. It was a cakewalk and an easy experience.
Students can also choose to personalize their lesson hours.
The normal course is done on a Nissan Sunny, and it is 3 times a week and 4 tests. So the time the students take to get their license takes a little bit of time, between a month and 15 days. As for the Bentleys and all the other Platinum cars, the student can take up to 4 hours a day, and they're able to finish in a matter of days, 5 or 6 days.
The service's price starts at $3,800 and could reach up to $5,900. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Up next, Tokyo Olympics organizers ban alcohol at the upcoming games. They say it's to prevent the spread of the CCP virus, and Japan's Asahi Breweries backs the ban. Find out more in just a moment on NTD News. There won't be any alcohol sold at the Tokyo Olympics on Wednesday. Organizers made the decision while defending plans to allow thousands of spectators.
With just 30 days to go until the Olympics, organisers in Tokyo decided on Wednesday to ban the sale of alcohol at venues. Tokyo Olympics president Seiko Hashimoto told reporters that the measure would prevent the spread of the coronavirus, adding that Japanese drinks company and sponsor, Asahi Breweries, had backed the decision. Media reports that organisers were considering allowing alcohol consumption in Olympic venues provoked a public outcry earlier this week. Hashimoto acknowledged that unease.
As the organising committee wants to hold the Games in a safe and secure manner, it's our responsibility to make it happen. So if our citizens have concerns over serving alcohol at the Olympics, I think we have to give up on that. That's why we have decided to ban the sale of alcohol.
She also defended the decision to allow up to 10,000 domestic spectators into venues. Hashimoto said that measure is in line with recommendations from medical experts. However, many Japanese remain sceptical that even a scaled-back games will be safe or secure. Those concerns only rose after a member of the Ugandan delegation who arrived in Japan on the weekend tested positive for the coronavirus. That's despite having been vaccinated and testing negative for COVID-19 before arrival. The arduous preparations for the Olympics appear to have also taken their toll on organisers. Tokyo Governor Yuriko Koike was hospitalised on Tuesday after the metropolitan government said she would take the rest of the week off due to fatigue.
And the delay to the Tokyo Olympics has been expensive in various ways. Here are some areas where costs have grown and where income that had been expected will not materialize.
The Tokyo Olympic Games will get underway in July, barring Armageddon, as one IOC member put it. But the delay has been expensive in various ways. Organisers previously put the entire cost of holding the Games at around $15.4 billion, including $2.8 billion for the unprecedented postponement from 2020. Since then, the projected bill for postponement has crept up to $3 billion. A key source of revenue, ticket sales, has been crippled due to new restrictions outlined by Tokyo 2020 President Seikei Hashimoto. With millions of tickets refunded, revenues are likely to be reduced by more than half, from an earlier expected $815 million. Overseas ticket holders have also been banned, killing hopes of a tourism windfall. Over 60 Japanese companies paid a record of more than $3 billion to sponsor the Games. Sponsors dished out another $200 million to extend contracts after everything was postponed. And that doesn't include partnerships with companies such as Toyota, Panasonic, and South Korea's Samsung, which, through a separate program for top-tier sponsors, have separate deals with the IOC worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Although the cancellation scenario is looking less likely by the day, global insurers would face a hefty bill should that happen, with estimates running to a loss of $2 to $3 billion. The IOC takes out about $800 million of protection for each Summer Games, which covers most of the roughly $1 billion investment it makes in each host city. Local organisers in Tokyo will have taken out a further policy, estimated at around $650 million. Analysts have estimated the insured cost of the 2020 Olympics at $2 billion, including TV rights and sponsorship, plus $600 million for hospitality.
And that's it for now. You can catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. I'm Evelyn Lee.
A new channel. Subscribe to us on YouTube at NTD News. Get the highlights of our news broadcast and the most important headlines that we curate especially for you.
Don't let YouTube decide what information you get. That's your choice. YouTube is deleting our videos and cuts you off from a source of honest reporting. Make sure you don't lose access to NTD's news content and take a quick moment to subscribe to our newsletter so no matter what happens here, you'll keep your access to a trustworthy news source.